in suggesting and stating over and over again that climate change was a quote-unquote hoax. Is that in fact the case?
That is correct, Senator.
Okay. Let me ask you this. As you may know, some 97% of scientists who have written articles for peer-reviewed journals have concluded that climate change is real, it is caused by human activity, and it is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. Do you believe that climate change is caused by the emission, by carbon emissions, by human activity?
Senator, as I indicated, you weren't in here during my opening statement, but as I indicated in my opening statement, the climate is changing, and the human activity contributes to that in some manner.
In some manner?
Yes, sir.
97% of the scientists who wrote articles in peer-reviewed journals believe that human activity is the fundamental reason we are seeing climate change. You disagree with that?
I believe the ability to measure with precision the degree of human activity's impact on the climate is subject to more debate on whether the climate is changing or whether human activity contributes to it.
While you are not certain, the vast majority of scientists are telling us that if we do not get our act together and transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, there is a real question as to the quality of the planet that we are going to be leaving our children and our grandchildren. So you are applying for a job as administrator for the EPA to protect our environment. Overwhelming majority of scientists say we have got to act boldly, and you're telling me that there needs to be more debate on this issue and that we should not be acting boldly.
No, Senator, as I've indicated, the climate is changing, and human activity.
But you haven't told me why you think the climate is changing.
Well, Senator, the job of the administrator is to carry out the statutes as passed by this body. And to
why is the climate changing?
Senator, in response to the CO2 issue, the EPA administrator is constrained by statutes.
I'm asking you a personal opinion.
My personal opinion is immaterial.
Really?
To the job of
you are going to be the head of the agency to protect the environment, and your personal feelings about whether climate change is caused by human activity and carbon emissions is immaterial?
Senator, I've acknowledged to you that the human activity impacts the climate.
Impacts.
Yes.
Scientific community doesn't tell us it impacts. They say it is the cause of climate change. We have to transform our energy system. Do you believe we have to transform our energy system in order to protect the planet for future generations?
I believe the EPA has a very important role at regulating the emissions.
You didn't
of
answer
CO2.
my question. Do you believe we have to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to do what the scientific community is telling us in order to make sure that this planet is healthy for our children and grandchildren?
Senator, I believe that the administrator has a very important role to perform in regulating CO2.
Can you tell me, as I think all of us know, Oklahoma has been subjected to a record-breaking number of earthquakes. Scientists in Oklahoma, or scientists say that Oklahoma is almost certain to have more earthquakes with heightened risk of a large quake probable to endure for a decade, and that the cause of this is fracking. Can you point me, picking up on Senator Harris's discussion with you, can you point me to any opinion that you wrote, any enforcement actions you took against the companies that were injecting waste fracking water?
Senator, let me say I'm very concerned about the connection between activity in Oklahoma.
And therefore, you must have taken action. I guess, can you tell me who you fined for doing this, if you're very concerned?
The Corporation Commission in Oklahoma is vested with the jurisdiction, and they've actually acted on that.
And you have made public statements expressing your deep concern about this.
We have worked through our...
You have made public statements. You're in a state which is seeing a record-breaking number of earthquakes. You're the Attorney General. Obviously, you have stood up and said you will do everything you can to stop future earthquakes as a result of fracking.
Senator, I've acknowledged that I'm concerned about...
You acknowledge that you are concerned. Your state is having a record number of... Well, if that's the kind of administrator for the EPA, your state's having a record-breaking number of earthquakes, you acknowledge you are concerned. If that's the kind of EPA administrator you will be, you're not going to get my vote.
Senator Inhofe.
Mr. Chairman, at UC request, I ask at this point in the record, that we reprint the Wall Street Journal op-ed piece that was written by two outstanding scientists called "The Myth of the Climate Change 97%.
Without objection. I have a little bit of time left in my questioning from the first round. I wanted to talk about some of the concerns I have with overregulation, and I asked, do you have the same concerns with the overregulation of U.S. manufacturing over the last 8 years? I believe it's exported manufacturing jobs overseas, jobs that go with them in terms of the manufacturing of those goods, to places like China and India that are going to produce those products in a less environmentally friendly way. And do you agree with this notion that this approach harms not just the environment, but also our own U.S. economy?
I believe, Senator, that it puts us at an economic disadvantage when we don't hear all voices in the rulemaking process with respect to these issues. Absolutely.
I'd also like to submit for the record an op-ed on CNN by Jeb Bush saying Scott Pruitt is ready to turn around the EPA. He said, I cannot think of a person more suited to lead the Environmental Protection Agency than Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt. He has acknowledged human impact on the climate and supports a robust discussion about its effects and what the government should and shouldn't do to address it. And then also submitting for the record a report that I did as a ranking member of the Subcommittee on Clean Air and Nuclear Safety of this committee. This was a couple of years ago, called Red Tape Making Americans Sick. I put this together as a physician, where we talk about unemployment. Long-term unemployment increases the likelihood of hospital visits, illnesses, premature deaths in communities due to joblessness. It hurts children's health, hurts family well-being, and quote scientists who point that the unemployment rate is well established as a risk factor for elevated illness and mortality rates in epidemiological studies performed since the 80s. In addition